What is covert narcissism, and why is it important for highly sensitive people to recognize this? I know this topic is a little bit confronting for a lot of highly sensitive people, and so when I talk about this topic, it's difficult for me to sometimes communicate this in the most loving way in which people can hear this, because I too was manipulated by silence, by shame, by guilt, until one day I realized that secrecy is the abuser's weapon. It's unfortunately very common for highly sensitive people, highly empathetic people, to find themselves in relationships with covert narcissists. Now, these relationships are extremely difficult to spot, particularly because the form of abuse is so covert. So when we look at the word covert as opposed to overt, it means that it's subtle, it's not easily discernible. So it's got a kind of stealth, under the radar kind of feel to it. And highly sensitive people are really finely tuned to this, because the way it makes us feel is like there's something wrong, but we never know what it is. We can feel it in the air. To deal with covert narcissists effectively, we first need to open our eyes. We are so conditioned to keep quiet. Our sight needs to become insight. And us being shocked and horrified by looking at the truth of these sort of relationships doesn't mean that they don't exist. Covert narcissists wreak havoc in a covert way, so their underlying condition remains hidden, sometimes for years. So you need to know this person for quite a while before you start seeing beyond their saintly illusion. We tend to feel really awkward around these people, and we don't know why. We end up feeling very avoidant, and we just want to get away from them. They can induce a feeling of really subtle anxiety that can leave us wondering for days later as to why are we feeling this way when there's apparently no obvious reason. And this confusion can leave us in analysis. It can lead us to look for clues. It can send us on a search. And they do an amazing job at brainwashing everybody around them. You need to carefully observe their actions. You will eventually realize that their words and actions don't match. They may carefully study their target and pretend to empathize on all the things that are important to you. They conceal their true nature behind a face of politeness and being well-meaning. Being in a relationship with a covert narcissist has been likened to psychological warfare. And those of us who are empaths will understand when I say that this occurs in the intangible arena. And the covert narcissist will slowly corrode our sense of reality. So we will never know whether there's something quite wrong, but there is, but we're not quite sure. So if you feel that you are becoming a detective in your relationships, whether it's romantic relationships, whether it's at work, whether it's with a friendship, if you are looking for answers and you're becoming like a detective, this is a sign of covert manipulation, and it causes us to be extremely dysregulated. So we will be apprehensive, we will be frightened, we will be mistrustful, we will start to doubt everything, and we generally will have this feeling that we are not safe in the world. And the covert narcissist is the wolf in sheep's clothing. So they will go out of their way to make everybody believe that they are truly a good person. They will go out of their way with their gift giving, their generosity, their kindness. And you might be the only person that's just sitting there and going, hang on, something doesn't feel right. I feel like there's strings attached. The covert narcissist can even go to the length of pretending that they are codependent. With covert narcissistic relationships, most of the times we don't know that we don't know. The covert narcissist is also known as the shy narcissist, the introverted narcissist. So he basically doesn't have the confidence. He will be fostering a feeling of bitterness, resentment. They will use pity plays. They will be extremely passive aggressive. They will sulk. They will moan. They will be the biggest victim you have ever met in your life. And I've heard passive aggressive behavior likened to a parasitic energy. So if you're targeted by a covert narcissist with strong parasitic tendencies, it can literally feel as if life is being sucked out of you. Passive-aggressive behaviour causes highly sensitive people great distress. It'll make us feel overburdened with guilt and responsibility. And passive-aggressive behaviour is extremely destructive, and it's a form of emotional abuse. Covert narcissists will use silence as a form of manipulation. So they will sulk, they will withdraw, they will withhold, they will control you with steely gazes, and they look to see if we respond to them ignoring us or to them overlooking us. And there's a game that they love to play, and it's a form of triangulation, and I'll probably go into that in more detail in another video, but the covert narcissist will use exclusionary behaviours, which means they will go out of their way to exclude certain people from a group. So say, for example, you come from a family of 4. They will pick one child, that's the golden child, and everybody else is kind of beneath the golden child. So they will spoil the one child who can do no wrong, and they will withdraw, withhold their affection, their attention, anything from the rest of the children. And there will be a very clear and distinct difference in the way they treat one child as opposed to everybody else. So they will scapegoat one child, setting them as an example, calling them the black sheep of the family. So notice this very predictable dynamic that covert narcissists will use to manipulate and to cause a lot of conflict in families and in group situations. Sometimes this can also happen in group situations. For example, it could be a support group, it could be a church, it could be another organization. And because covert narcissists do their all to make it appear that they are such a good person, it's extremely difficult for the one person who's saying something isn't right here. They tend to sometimes appear very playful and benign, but just observe the facade that they are putting on to manipulate everybody else. When you're in the presence of a covert narcissist, there will be like a sense of fear and apprehension and uncertainty and absolutely confusion. There's a lot of instability and irritation, but we can never quite put our finger on it. So the most empowering thing that we need to do as highly sensitive people, which is sometimes really the most difficult part for us, is to recognize when we are in these sort of relationships. We need to know precisely that this is happening to us. So when you find yourself minimizing, denying, particularly when you're making repetitive excuses for someone else's behavior, and if you hear yourself or someone that you know using the words if only, you might hear yourself say, if only they went to therapy, if only they found the right therapist, if only their childhood wasn't so difficult, if only they'd stop drinking. So it's a continuation of if onlys. So we are actually not dealing with reality. We are not confronting the truth of what's actually happening in front of us. And when we do this, we are actually participating in our own betrayal. And this is definitely in favor of the covert narcissist. Another hallmark is secrecy and a double life. Covert narcissists often have a secret addiction, whether it's drinking, whether it's gambling. Their word is law. So they wear the pants in the family and are like tyrants, but only behind closed doors. Because of course, in front of others, they're just really nice. And this might be difficult for highly sensitive people to hear, but covert narcissists will lie about being ill or being in recovery from a serious illness. They behave in this way to gain attention, to gain your sympathy, and to control your life. No matter how bad your situation is, they have experienced it 10 times worse. Covert narcissists are rarely physically violent, but they will erode your self-confidence with constant indirect criticisms about your weight, your clothes, your appearance, your achievements, and we start doubting our own abilities. And this is a subtle form of devaluation. Covert narcissists are more cerebral, they're more intellectual. They feel extremely underappreciated and they will moan and sulk about it. They will hint and imply things like, I'm so wonderful, but nobody can see it. But underneath that, you can feel a really bitter, resentful, and furious, cold rage. So they will imply that they're really special, they're one of a kind, I'm so fantastic, nobody can understand me yet. So these sort of statements clearly indicate the narcissist's belief in their superiority, entitlement, and grandiosity. Other interesting points to look out for when it comes to covert narcissists is their self-centeredness. So they're extremely poor listeners. They have a smugness about them. They make you feel like they're constantly running assessments and judgments, and nothing and no one can match their standards. Everything tends to be uninteresting, flawed, and just not worthy of their attention. And all of this stuff is a form of manipulation to let you know that they are somehow superior than everybody else, but yet they lack the confidence to do it overtly. They use dismissive gestures, groans and sighs, just to let you know how bored they are with you. Impolite yawns and complete inappropriate and disrespectful behavior to let you know, but not in a confrontational manner, but they imply. They will be intentionally dismissive of other people's comments, of their thoughts, of their feelings. Every response will be about them. They are so focused on what they think is important, and everything else is dismissed and it's labeled as boring or stupid. The covert narcissist will have grandiose fantasies. They're preoccupied with grandiose achievements, imagining themselves as center of the world's attention, where they are acclaimed by all. However, they lack the confidence and the initiative to take action on anything. So they walk around feeling sorry for themselves and like the world owes them something. They will tell you sob stories of a terrible past, of a history of failed relationships, the jobs they lost, the promotions they missed. So their stories will all be a string of misfortunes. So they project an image of empathy and compassion, but that is used to hook us in. Because us highly sensitive people, we want to help, we want to assist, we want to bring comfort to those who are misfortuned. So be aware if this is a behavior that you observe repeatedly. Covert narcissists will start a whispering campaign. So they will gossip, talk behind your back, and it's a covert way of bullying. And this is so carefully fabricated that it will never be traced back to them. And it's a psychological form of manipulation. So they find ways to let you know that they're not happy with you. And even if you do confront the covert narcissist and you say, hey, I'm really confused about what you just said or what you did, they will absolutely deny. They will persuade you, they will confuse you, they will make you believe that what you saw wasn't true. They will play the victim so well that it will convince you that you must be the delusional one, that you're overreacting and you must be mistaken. And this repeated form of manipulation leads us to really question our reality. It leads us to question our intuition, and we start to doubt our own hearts. The covert narcissist is extremely stubborn, and they will never apologize unless there's something in it for them. They have the ability to make you feel guilty even when it's not your fault. They're extremely charming. They're almost hypnotizing. They are pathological liars and master manipulators, but yet they're extremely sensitive to criticism. Another manipulation tactic, covert narcissists will talk about you in a wonderful way to make themselves look good. They will tell other people how wonderful they think you are, about your achievements. However, they will never tell you directly to your face. And the reason for this behavior is that by them talking about you to other people about how wonderful they think you are, the other person thinks that the covert narcissist must be a wonderful person, that they must be in a great relationship with you, and also Your achievements and your goodness actually makes the narcissist look good. However, notice that the covert narcissist will never tell you to your face that you are wonderful, that they are proud of you. So they will withhold telling you so you can forever feel not good enough, constantly feel like you want to prove yourself and that you need to be more loyal and that there's something wrong with you. They also count on us feeling very guilty and ashamed. Covert narcissists can come across as quite empty and depressed, full of despair, and quite vulnerable. They have a false sense of humility and they're prone to isolation and self-pity. They're vulnerable to stress because their tactics of manipulation are so cowardly. But keep in mind, again, this is particularly important for highly sensitive people to know because this is how they hook us in. So we forever become their rescuer, their savior, and we will spend the next God knows how many years trying to save this poor soul who clearly doesn't want to do anything. Covert narcissists don't want any help. They will just pretend that they do to keep you hopeful. They want your empathy, your sympathy. They want you to forever be looking for clues. When we participate in these sort of relationships, we end up feeling physically, emotionally, psychologically exhausted. And before we know it, we've spent our entire lives trying to help someone else who hasn't changed one bit. And another really important point that I'd love to make, which really hit home for me as a highly sensitive person, is when I came across a statement that really resonated. And it said, victims want to fix the abuser. So they've manipulated us into taking responsibility for something that they do or they don't do. So we can spend our entire lives trying to help them, looking for the right therapist, looking for solutions, trying to find answers as to why they're behaving this way. When we make excuses for and justify this person's behavior repeatedly, they are actually counting on us to do that. In our highly sensitive, loving, gentle constitution, we cannot comprehend that someone as cold and manipulative as this exists, let alone that we are in a relationship with a person like this. So they count on us being in disbelief, in minimizing, in ignoring the issue. In fact, the psychological term narcissistic supply refers to those people who provide a constant source of attention, approval, adoration, and admiration for the narcissist. And another really important point that I'd love to make about covert narcissism is that our expectation and hope that this person or this relationship or this situation will change one day is another thing that they manipulate and use against us. Simply because they know that we have a very patient and forgiving nature and we love to see potential in the most negative situations, they feed off this. And this is a covert form of manipulation that's used against us. Because those of us who have been through these relationships, we will wake up 10, 20, 30 years later to realize that nothing has changed, but yet we're still in hope. And oftentimes when we have this realization, it's extremely difficult to confront ourselves with this truth that we have basically been in a relationship that has taken us nowhere, but has left us in low self-esteem, in doubt, in skepticism, and it's so difficult to confront this truth. We may feel ashamed and humiliated, so it's difficult for us to say, hey, you know what? I didn't see this. Narcissistic personality disorder is the only disorder where everybody else seeks treatment but the patient himself. Healthy relationships are between two people on equal terms who are equally contributing. We are not here to fix anyone. We are not here to save anyone. Relationships must be between two willing participants. When we rescue other people from the consequences of their actions or inactions, we are actually taking on the responsibility that isn't ours. So that is when we feel overburdened, absolutely stressed, we can't cope. All those emotions indicate poor boundaries. When it comes to covert narcissism, we need to develop a much finer, faster level of discernment. We have been so confused and disoriented for so long. Many of us are just used to suppressing our emotions. Some of us may even have had to resort to medicating our emotions. But deep down inside, we know this is not a solution. And we suffer as highly sensitive people when we cannot connect to our emotions. And so our healing begins when we're able to reconnect to our bodies and listen to what our body is communicating when we're in the presence of these sort of people. And a lot of people may not be ready to confront this, and that's fine because everybody is at a different stage of their healing. I really believe that our power lies in getting to a point where we recognize that all the adversity that we have experienced in our life is just a call toward greatness, and that we realize that information can contribute to our transformation.